During a family trip, my brother stole my room key and said, "I deserve the suite more than you." I smirked and said, "That's funny, because I just switched rooms." His jaw dropped when the hotel staff announced, "All right, let me start by saying that my brother, Matt, has always been entitled." I don't say that lightly. This man genuinely believes the world owes him everything simply because he exists. Growing up, I dealt with his nonsense constantly. If I got a new bike, he'd throw a fit until my parents got him one, two, sometimes even better than mine. If I got praised for good grades, he'd immediately find a way to make it about him. You get the picture. Now, we're both grown, and unfortunately, Matt hasn't changed much. He still thinks he's the center of the universe, and my parents? Well, they've spent a lifetime enabling him, so at this point, it's just routine. But what happened on this family trip? This one takes the cake. The family trip that went off the rails. Our parents had planned this trip to Las Vegas for months. They wanted one last big family vacation before everyone got too busy with life. Honestly, I think it was their way of trying to get Matt and me to bond, but that ship had sailed years ago. Still, free trip to Vegas? I wasn't going to complain. We stayed at the Venetian. If you've ever been, you know it's a beautiful hotel, high ceilings, marble floors, the whole deal. I was actually pretty excited about it. My parents had booked us all separate rooms, but here's where it gets interesting. When we arrived, the lady at the front desk gave me my room key and said, "Oh, you've been upgraded to one of our luxury suites. Enjoy your stay." I blinked. Are you sure?" She smiled. "Yes, sir. Complimentary upgrade. You're in the Lego suite." I wasn't about to argue. I thanked her, took my key, and headed up. The suite was incredible. Huge living area, massive bathroom, even a view of the strip. I was still standing there in shock when my brother called. "Yo, what room are you in?" I debated lying, but figured he'd find out eventually. "Lego suite." Silence. Then, "Wait, how the hell did you get the suite?" I shrugged, even though he couldn't see me. "They upgraded me." Matt's voice turned bitter real quick. "That's bullshit. I should have gotten that room." I sighed. "I didn't ask for it. It just happened." He huffed, then hung up. I figured that was the end of it. I was so wrong. The room key incident that night, we all went to dinner at a nice steakhouse. Matt was fuming the entire time, barely talking. At one point, my mom whispered, "Just let him cool off. He's jealous, but he'll get over it." "Yeah, okay. Sure." After dinner, we went to the casino. I played blackjack for a while, won a bit, lost a bit, and eventually got tired. I decided to head back to my room. When I reached for my key, though, it wasn't in my pocket. Weird. I was sure I had it. I searched everywhere, wallet, jacket, even checked my phone case. Nothing. That's when I had a sinking feeling. I turned and walked straight back to the casino, scanning the tables until I found Matt. He was sitting at a poker table, grinning like he had just won the lottery. I crossed my arms. "Give me my key." His smirk grew. "What key?" I took a deep breath. "Matt, give me my damn key." He leaned back in his chair, stretching like he had all the time in the world. Then, in the most smug voice imaginable, he said, "I deserve the suite more than you. You wouldn't even appreciate it." I felt my jaw tighten. "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious." He tossed a poker chip in the air, catching it lazily. "You should thank me. You don't need all that space. I, on the other hand, deserve luxury." I stared at him. He genuinely believed this. I could have yelled. Could have made a scene. But instead, I smirked. "That's funny," I said. "Because I just switched rooms." The confidence drained from his face. "What?" I pulled out a new key card from my pocket, the one I had just picked up from the front desk before heading back here. "Yeah. I lost my key, so I went to the front desk. Told them to switch my room. Thought it'd be safer. Turns out, they gave me an even better suite." His face paled. "You're lying." Just then, I spotted a hotel staff member passing by. I flagged him down. "Hey, can you let my brother know what happens when someone tries to enter a room they weren't assigned?" The employee, bless his soul, nodded professionally. "Oh, yes, sir. If a guest attempts to enter a room that's been reassigned, security is immediately alerted." Matt's eyes widened. The employee continued. "If the guest is found inside without authorization, it's considered trespassing." Matt swallowed hard. That's when I leaned in, keeping my voice low. "So, I'd hurry up and get out of my suite before security shows up." Just a thought. He shot up from his chair so fast, he knocked over his drink. Without another word, he rushed out of the casino, presumably to grab his things before security could. I watched him go, shaking my head. And the best part? I hadn't switched rooms. I was still in the same suite. I just wanted to see him sweat. "Sir, there's been an issue with your reservation." My brother, Nick, stood there, still clutching my stolen key card, his face turning red. He had been so smug just seconds ago, thinking he had pulled one over on me. Now, he was suddenly quiet. The hotel manager cleared his throat, glancing between us. The suite was double booked, and unfortunately, we had to move you to a different room. Nick's jaw tensed. What do you mean, a different room? I crossed my arms, enjoying the moment. Oh, this was too good. The manager continued, looking a little nervous. The suite you were supposed to have was actually reserved under a VIP's name. There was a mix-up, so we had to move you to. He hesitated. Nick took a deep breath. Move me to where? The manager finally said it. The economy room on the first floor. Silence. I watched Nick's expression shift, first confusion, then shock, then rage. His whole plan had just exploded in his face. He had stolen my key, thinking he was upgrading himself, only to find out I had already switched rooms. And now? Now he was stuck in a tiny, windowless room right next to the employee break area. I bit back a laugh. Huh, looks like I got lucky after all. Nick turned to me, his fists clenched. You knew about this. I shrugged. Nah, I just got a better deal. Guess I deserved the suite more than you, huh? His nostrils flared. You think this is funny? I did. I really did. But before I could rub it in, our mom, who had been suspiciously quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. Enough. Nick and I both turned to her. She sighed, rubbing her temples. We're on a family trip. I am not dealing with this nonsense. Nick, just take the economy room and be grateful you have a place to sleep. Nick scoffed, looking at our dad for backup. But Dad just gave him a look, the kind that said, you did this to yourself. I thought that was the end of it. I thought Nick would just sulk and accept his fate. I was wrong. The next morning I woke up feeling amazing in my upgraded suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows, fluffy pillows, room service. It was perfect. I stretched, yawned, and grabbed my phone. 12 missed calls. What? I scrolled through the notifications. Texts from my parents, my sister, and the hotel staff? Something was wrong. I barely had time to process before there was a loud knock at my door. I stumbled out of bed, still groggy, and opened it. My dad stood there, his face furious. What the hell did you do? I blinked. What? He shoved his phone at me. Look. I took it, confused, and stared at the screen. Security footage. From inside the hotel. My stomach twisted. I pressed play. And there was Nick. Breaking into a room. My room. I felt my chest tighten. He wasn't just sneaking in, he was searching for something. Pulling open drawers, tossing my stuff around. What the hell is he looking for? I muttered. Dad's voice was sharp. Your passport. Your wallet. Your laptop. My blood ran cold. Nick had tried to steal from me. I barely had time to react before another voice cut in. That's not the worst part, my sister said, stepping forward. She was pale, gripping her phone tightly. She hit play on another video. And this time, my whole body went numb. Because there was Nick. Talking to someone. Talking to my ex. The betrayal I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My ex. The one person I had cut out of my life completely. The one person I had sworn I'd never talk to again. And there she was, on camera, standing outside the hotel at 3 a.m., meeting up with my brother. They were talking in hushed voices. She handed him something, a folder? Papers? I could see his smirk. That smug, satisfied smirk. The video ended. I swallowed hard. What the hell is going on? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. My dad sighed, rubbing his temples. That's what we need to figure out. I turned to my sister. How did you get this? She hesitated. I overheard him on the phone last night. He was acting weird, so I checked the security cameras. And then I saw. She gestured to the phone. I clenched my jaw. Nick hadn't just tried to steal my room. He hadn't just tried to take my stuff. He had been working with my ex. And suddenly I knew. This wasn't just some petty sibling rivalry anymore. This was war. My brain was scrambling to make sense of everything. Nick, my own brother, had been sneaking around behind my back, meeting up with my ex. And for what? What the hell were they planning? I took a slow, deep breath. What was in that folder? My sister hesitated. I don't know. Dad's jaw was tight. We need to talk to Nick. That was the last thing I wanted. But we had no choice. We stormed downstairs to his tiny, miserable economy room, where Mom was already knocking on his door. Nick, open up. Silence. Then, movement. A slow shuffle. A lock clicking. And finally, the door creaked open. Nick stood there, looking half asleep and annoyed. What? I pushed past him, straight into the room. Don't play dumb. We saw the footage. Nick froze. Dad's voice was sharp. You want to explain why you were sneaking into your brother's room? Or why you were meeting his ex in the middle of the night? Nick's face did something weird, like he wanted to lie, but knew he couldn't. I stepped closer. What's in the folder, Nick? He scoffed, running a hand through his messy hair. Relax. It's not what you think. My sister folded her arms. Then explain it. Nick hesitated. Then he muttered, it's paperwork. Just some old documents I needed. I narrowed my eyes. You're lying. He let out a dry laugh. Think whatever you want. Dad wasn't buying it. You stole from your own brother. You broke into his room. Nick's jaw clenched. I didn't steal anything. I pulled out my phone. So if I check my bag right now, my passport, wallet, and laptop will all be there? Silence. And that was it. That was all the proof I needed. Nick finally exhaled, rubbing his temples. Look, man, it's not like that. I felt my hands curl into fists. Then what is it like? And then, he said something that made my blood turn to ice. It's about Dad. The entire room went still. Dad stiffened. What the hell does that mean? Nick sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. You really want to do this here? Dad folded his arms. Yes. Nick muttered something under his breath. Then, finally, he spoke. Your ex, she didn't just randomly show up. She had a reason. I glared at him. What reason? Nick hesitated, then said, she is proof that Dad is hiding something. Something big. My stomach dropped. That's bullshit. Nick's voice was sharp. Is it? He turned to Dad. Go on. Tell them. Dad's face was unreadable. Mom looked between them, her expression tense. What is he talking about? Nick took a slow breath. Dad has a whole other life. A secret life. I actually laughed at how ridiculous that sounded. You're insane. Nick didn't blink. Then why don't you ask him? I turned to Dad, expecting him to shut this down. To tell Nick he was full of crap. But Dad didn't say anything. The air in the room changed. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Dad? Still, he said nothing. And that's when I knew. Nick wasn't lying. Something was very, very wrong. The other family, the silence stretched. Mom's voice was quiet. Too quiet. Tell me this is a joke. Dad finally exhaled, closing his eyes for a long moment. Then he spoke. It's complicated. My breath caught. Oh my God. Mom's hands were shaking. Complicated? How is this complicated? Dad rubbed his face. Because, it's true. The world tilted. I felt like I was going to be sick. Dad sighed. It was a long time ago. Before you kids were born. I was young, stupid. I made mistakes. Mom stumbled back like she had been physically hit. Are you telling me? Her voice broke. You have another family? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nick nodded, arms crossed. Told you. My mind raced. Why the hell would my ex know about this? Nick's face hardened. Because Dad's secret family? Yeah. Turns out, one of them is her cousin. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. The threat mom sat down on the edge of the bed, hands shaking. Dad let out a tired sigh. Look, I never wanted you to find out like this. Nick scoffed. Yeah, because you were never gonna tell us. I was still reeling. So let me get this straight. You had a whole other family, and you were just gonna pretend they didn't exist? Dad's face darkened. It's not that simple. Nick laughed bitterly. Oh, it's real simple. Your little secret is out. And guess what? Your past is about to screw all of us over. My stomach twisted. What does that mean? Nick's voice was flat. It means your ex didn't come here just to stir up drama. She came with a deal. Mom's voice was raw. What kind of deal? Nick's expression hardened. They want money. A lot of it. I clenched my jaw. Or what? Nick exhaled slowly. Or they expose everything. To the press. To Mom. To us. To Dad's job. Holy shit. The clock is ticking. My hands were shaking. Dad looked at the floor, saying nothing. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Is that true? Dad swallowed. Yes. And just like that, everything fell apart. This wasn't just about Nick being an ass. This wasn't just about my ex. This was about our entire family being torn apart. And we had no idea what was coming next. The breaking point, the room was suffocating. No one spoke. No one could. Dad was slumped in a chair, head in his hands. Mom looked shattered, like someone had taken her entire life and stomped on it. Nick was watching it all unfold, arms crossed, looking almost victorious. I, on the other hand, was fuming. Let me get this straight, I said, barely keeping my voice steady. You had a whole other family. One of them happens to be my ex's cousin. And now, they're blackmailing you for money. Dad didn't look up. Answer me. I snapped. He finally exhaled, shoulders sinking deeper. Yes. Mom let out a broken sound. How much? Dad finally lifted his head. His face looked older somehow, like this secret had been rotting him from the inside for years. 200,000. Mom gasped. My sister looked like she was going to be sick. I let out a harsh laugh. 200,000? Are you serious? What do they think you are, a millionaire? Dad's eyes darkened. It's not just money. It's hush money. If I don't pay, they go public. My job, our reputations, it's all gone. Nick shook his head. Yeah, well, maybe you should have thought about that before playing house with two different families. Mom flinched. Nick, stop. Nick turned to her, expression cold. Why? He ruined everything. He lied to you. To us. And now we're supposed to just cover for him? Tears filled Mom's eyes. I don't know. And that's when I realized. She was still trying to process it. Still trying to find a way to forgive him. I couldn't believe it. You're actually thinking about staying? I asked, my voice full of disbelief. Mom looked lost. What else am I supposed to do? Nick scoffed. Unbelievable. But I saw it now, Nick knew. He had always known. You've known for a while, haven't you? I asked him, my voice lower now. Nick's jaw tightened. How long? I pressed. Nick hesitated. Then he muttered, a year. A whole year. My vision blurred with rage. You knew Dad had a secret family. You knew my ex was involved. And instead of telling any of us, you played games? You stole my room, broke into my stuff, and let me find out this way. Nick gave me a blank stare. Why should I have told you? I snapped. I lunged at him. Fists clenched. Adrenaline surging. Years of resentment exploding all at once. But before I could land a punch, Dad was between us, shoving me back. Enough. Dad's voice boomed through the tiny room. The rage in my chest roared. Don't you dare tell me what to do. You don't get to control anything anymore. Dad stared at me, breathing hard. I made a mistake. A mistake? I laughed bitterly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This is a double life. Dad exhaled. I was young, stop. Mom's voice cut through the chaos. She stood up, wiping her face. Her hands were shaking. She turned to Dad, eyes full of rage and devastation. You don't get to make excuses. You don't get to stand here and act like this just happened to you. Dad opened his mouth, but she wasn't done. You lied to me for over 25 years. Her voice wavered. Every anniversary. Every birthday. Every I love you. It was all a lie. Dad's face twisted in pain. It wasn't a lie. Mom shook her head. Then why do I feel like I don't even know you? Silence. I turned to Nick. And you? What was your endgame here? You hate Dad so much, but you let him dig his own grave while you played your little power games with me. Nick's face darkened. I wanted him to suffer. I clenched my jaw. So you let us all suffer too? Nick didn't answer. Dad looked between us, then sighed. I'll fix this. Nick let out a sharp laugh. Fix it? With what money? Mom's savings? Our college funds. Dad looked away. And that was it. The final betrayal. He didn't have a plan. He never had a plan. We left the hotel that night. Mom refused to even look at Dad. My sister cried quietly in the car. I felt numb. Dad stayed behind, trying to handle things, but there was nothing left to handle. By the time we got home, Mom had already called a lawyer. She filed for divorce the next day. Nick? He disappeared. Literally. He packed a bag and left town without telling anyone where he was going. I didn't look for him. I didn't care. The blackmail attempt? It never went anywhere. Turns out, Dad didn't have anything to give them. His finances were already a disaster. The moment they realized he couldn't pay, they moved on. My ex? I never spoke to her again. But sometimes, when I think about that night, the security footage, the hushed conversations, the secrets unraveling like a horror movie, I wonder. Did she ever really love me? Or was I just another pawn in a game that started before I even knew I was playing? It's been 2 years since that trip. Mom is doing better. She's learning to live for herself for the first time in her life. My sister is still healing. Dad? He's a ghost now. A man with nothing left. As for Nick, I heard from him once. A short text. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. I never replied. Because some things can't be forgiven. I lost a brother that night. But maybe I never really had one to begin with. The end.